Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Saturn Return Diaries podcast. My name is Courtney. If you're new here, welcome. We talk about obviously astrology, but mostly your Saturn return. And yeah, thanks everybody for coming back. I've been getting a lot of like really good comments lately, and we actually just reached 1,000 views or listens. However, I think it's listens. Yeah, which is super exciting. So definitely celebrating that. But if you're here watching us on YouTube, hi, you can see us. So just a reminder, if you're listening to the podcast, you can also come over to YouTube and watch there. So yeah, I'm super excited to do this interview today. Just for so many reasons, but mostly because obviously Ariana is my friend, but our story of how we've met is so interesting, and it's really like divine and kind of serendipitous, I guess, is a word that kind of I would use to describe it. And just knowing now that what a Saturn return is and knowing who Ariana is, I'm so excited to kind of dive in more to her story and how she's got to where she is today, and intertwine that astrology. So, for starters, I guess I will just say hello, Ariana. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm
Good.
stoked to be here.
Yeah, so excited. Um, so before we kind of like dive in, I like to ask people like, who are you? Like, beside you can say what you do, but like, who is Ariana?
Oh, that's a tough question to answer because I feel like that changes on a daily basis. And I love your emphasis of like, or how you said you can start with what you do, but like outside of that. And that's something that I've really been working at is trying to not adopt new skins as I shed old ones and take on labels and identify with who I am and what I do because it seems to just constantly be changing. So rather than like grieve this thing that I thought I was that's gone, why not just like not attach to things?
Mm.
Um, so I guess, at my core level, I am a human currently I'm in a human body. Um, I definitely just feel like I am a soul who is here in this body in this short timeline to do a lot of different things, to bring people together, to help people connect to their truths, to help people see things from different perspectives.
Mhm.
Um, and one thing that I will kind of attach to right now is that I am a new mom. So I think that will probably come up a lot and she might come in and you might hear her crying out there. So I just wanted to share that. Um, but yeah, I just feel like I'm all of the things and also nothing at the same
Mhm.
time right now, if that makes any sense at all.
I love it so much. Like I'm all of the things, but also nothing. I feel like probably so many people can relate to that because, what, yeah, like what is going on, like who are we as we shed and grow into this new world and who we are. So, and you literally created new life. So it's like,
Super wild.
yeah, so interesting. I also really like that you brought in that snake analogy. I was like, oh, there it is.
Trolling you, following you all over.
Yeah. Yeah. The snake situation is just a lot. But anyway, okay, so that's amazing. So I love how you've described who you are. Do you want to tell us what it is that you do in this world?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, in addition to also being a lot of things, I also do a lot of things, manifesting generator over here. I don't do quite as many things as Court does, but um, I am a coach. So, I work primarily with entrepreneurs, spiritual business owners, really helping folks build soul aligned businesses, combining both the strategic and the energetic side of things. I do also work with some non entrepreneurial folks, really just helping them get clear on their path and what it is that they want to do and create in this world. I'm a breathwork facilitator. I work with different forms of earth and energy medicine. So sometimes we do really weird things like I bust out the drums and I like call in animals and stuff for you. And other times it's just about connecting with different elements of the earth and how they can support you.
Mm.
And I think that covers it. Yeah. I think that's all I do. I
Yeah.
kind of forgot.
Yeah.
I've been out of it for a little while, but
And there's been this whole, well, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but like what you used to do and how like you got to this point is also super big.
Totally.
So excited to hear more about that. But yeah, you do manifesting generators for life. So much. Okay, so what is your sun, moon, rising?
So thank you to you. I remember this now. I'm a Capricorn sun and then Aquarius rising and moon.
Yes, very, very Aquarius, but also very Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
Do you relate to these signs and symbols and like, or how do you feel like you relate to them, if you do at all?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I really resonate with both of them. And, growing up, when you hear about astrology, you really just identify by your sun sign, right? So knowing that I was a Capricorn my whole life, I really identified with that. I'm very structured, very organized, very persistent. Like I have no problem things taking a super, super long time. Like I like to play the slow and steady game. Um, and I know there's a lot about like that earthly side of things too, right? And I do like the finer things in life. I do like to make money. And even when I was little, I was a hustler, and my mom was always like, "Oh, that's your Capricorn energy. Okay, now go do your lemonade stand or sell your rocks outside." Um, so I've always really resonated with that. But then every now and then I get in this like, I don't know, can I swear on here?
Of course.
Okay, cool. Every now and then I get in this like, fuck it, I just want to burn it all down and like start over kind of energy. And it always felt really like antithetical, I think that's the word, to how I am most of the time. And so when I learned that there was that Aquarian energy in my moon and my rising, it made sense because it felt like they were such different energies that I was experiencing. And they are very different energies. So it was really validating to learn that.
Really validating. I love that. It's versus like labeling you. It's like validating to hear, oh, like these other energies are part of me as well. I really,
Mhm.
really like that.
Yeah, like it
Um,
almost kind of felt like boxed in having to like only be Capricorn.
mm, yes, this is like the ticket. It's like understanding that, you've got these other energies and you might have some more than others. Like you said, your moon and rising are both in Aquarius, which gives you a lot of that energy to work with. But, your core of your sun sign of that being that Capricorn kind of steady, sturdy builder, hustler, as you used from, back in the day. It's just really cool to hear it that way. And I love that you use the term validating. I really like that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I will also just say Ariana is like that mix of of Aquarius and Capricorn. I think is so amazing because of the fact that there's this element of like Capricorn being that, like I said, kind of grounded earthly energy, but ability to grow, ability to make something, long lasting is very Capricorn. And Aquarius comes at this with like different perspectives. And you just said this, you are somebody who offers different perspectives. So having that is just so like beautiful. And anyway, I just wanted to be like, yes, that's so you.
Thanks.
All right. So we're gonna obviously dive in a little bit here to your Saturn. We're gonna take a little walk back down memory lane. But before we do, just for context so people know and understand, can you tell us like how old you are right now if you're comfortable? And maybe give a word for how the last few years have been for you.
Oh. Okay, so I'm 32. And it's funny, the first word that came to my mind was tumultuous, but I don't actually think that's what it was. I think that's like a little bit dramatic. Um, but maybe, I don't know. I'm like, there was a lot of shadow work, and there was a lot of, again, going back to that, like shedding and releasing and shedding and releasing. And I'm so used to doing it now that it kind of feels like, oh, no biggie. But like in the moment, it really did feel super intense.
Hmm.
So I'm going to be dramatic and I'm going to say tumultuous.
The Saturn return tumultuous time. Yeah, I feel like that's a great word. Great, great word. I love that. So just for context, so people know, I have Ariana's birth chart up. Obviously, you can't see it. That stuff is kind of private, but I will say where the Saturn is. So, for Ariana, she has Saturn in Capricorn, and it's at 6 degrees and it's in the 11th house. So there's a few things happening with it. But what I will say, having Saturn in Capricorn, I haven't done an episode just on this yet, but I will. But Saturn is that structure, government, our restrictions, the things that we have to work through in our lessons. Capricorn is very structure based, right? Like we just said, it's about growing and building something. It's about having a system that holds us. The interesting thing with this is that it's in your 11th house, which is about the collective and the communities. And often the 11th house can also be about, yes, our friendships, but kind of more about the outside world. So this can be, how other people see us in our role in the world. People with a lot of 11th house activity can be people that are seen in different areas in the outside world. So whether that be through social media, the TV, whatever, 11th house kind of like governs all that stuff. So that is really good context to have as you're listening to this episode. So just keep that in mind. Now, when Saturn was in Capricorn, it started in about 2017. So first off, Ariana, can we go back to like right before you turned 28? So we'll say 27. And maybe that's your progressed moon time. So what was going on around that part of your life? And was it setting you up for your Saturn return at all that you noticed?
Okay, wait. So I need help with the timeline here.
Yes.
So 2017
Mm-hmm.
was 4 years ago. So I would have been 28.
Okay.
So my birthday's in January. So I turned 28 in January. So we're looking at like end of 2016 kind of thing then.
Yeah. When you turned 27, so that would have been January, obviously the January before. So anytime in there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
At that time I was working like a workhorse. So at that time, my business, I was a personal trainer. And at that time I was still doing it on my own, and I had not moved into my new space yet. So I was training at the gym. I was doing the typical personal trainer schedule of say like 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then like 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. I was working with clients about 25 hours a week. And I'm Capricorn, but I'm also like very empathic. And at the time, I didn't have really strong boundaries either. So it was very energetically draining for me to be doing that much one-on-one work in person. And I was also training for triathlons. So in 2017, I did a half Ironman. So I was like building up my training in 2016 as well. So I was working out at that time, probably about 10 to 11 hours a week, doing tons of swimming, cycling, running. So I'd normally like get up, do my personal training sessions, stay at the gym, do a workout, go for a run or a bike ride, and then go back to the gym to work with my clients in the evening. Plus, I was also building this business. So basically, any free moment in there, I was working on my business. I was creating content. I was running fitness challenges, connecting with people online, networking. I'm exhausted just thinking about all of it, but that's basically what my life was at that time.
Wow. So that was all before 28, but kind of merging into your 28th year.
Yeah. So that was, definitely like end of 2016. Was it 2017? Yeah, it was 2017. My former business partner and I as well, Nadia. Hello, Nadia, if you are listening. We also, yes. We also collaborated on an event in 2017. We did it 2018 as well, but it was called Health Crawl. It was like a trade show, pub crawl kind of thing. And we started working on that end of 2016. And that was like a huge chunk of our work in the beginning of my Saturn return too. So I thought I'd throw that in there because that was also very relevant at the time.
No, that's actually a really good point. I actually went to the Health Crawl, and that's how I oh no, I don't think I met you that time. I think it was a different EHF event, but that's so fascinating because what you were doing at this health crawls in Vancouver is, you're creating a structure, based around obviously at the time your interests and stuff, but it was for the collective. It was for people to gather, which is that 11th house. And so I just find that really, really fascinating. So 28 often becomes that. It totally depends for every person, but it does become a bit of a peak time for people because Ariana has her Saturn at 6 degrees. This is like means that, Saturn would transit over top of her own Saturn earlier rather than later in the transit. So this can actually mean like the buildup starts to happen prior and it kind of like condenses it down. What I will also say is you have Uranus, Neptune and Uranus conjunct your Saturn. So for people who don't know what that means, um, it's actually a stellium, but so there's two or more planets that are really closely together. And this gives you this extra energy of like using these planets in that house. So Neptune's all about having a big dream and vision and bringing it to life. And also Uranus is doing it in a revolutionary way. So I just, yeah, think that this is so fitting. So now that we've, got to this point, so you're 28 now, let's say you turn 28, you're working on the health crawl. What comes next? Like what's next in this phase?
I would say it was pretty similar
Mhm.
through to like July. And it's interesting how you say that my Saturn, I think you said, is at 6 degrees. So it happens earlier.
Mhm.
But I also think like I'm super stubborn and I'm really good at like pushing through and like dealing with discomfort. So things had started to kind of like go south for a lot of my goals early in 2017. I dislocated my shoulder like right at end of 2016, which totally threw a wrench in my swimming plans. I sprained my MCL, which is one of the ligaments in your knee, early in 2017. I think I sprained my ankle as well. And I just had like all of these signs of like, don't do a half Ironman this year. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to keep doing it anyway. And Nadia and I were working on health crawl probably like 10 hours a week. My training had ramped up to be about 15 hours a week. And I was super tired. And like Nadia and I were both just like, why are we working on this so much? Like, this is ridiculous. Um, but I was like, I want to do these things. Like, let's just keep going. Let's power through. So, sorry, Nadia, because I kind of dragged her through that. And then I did it again the following year. Um, but yeah, I was like really injured physically. And I just remember being really, really mentally tired, like not having the energy for basically anything outside of work or training. And I arguably didn't have the energy for those things as well. I was dealing with a lot of issues with my cycle. I had been for years before that, but it was not getting any better by that point. And it wasn't until I did my half Ironman, which was like end of July in 2017. Like that was my like breaking point. Like there was nothing left after that. So health crawl had come and gone. I was still working like a wild woman for my business. And once I finished that half Ironman, like my tank was empty. And I remember taking a couple of weeks off of training and feeling so like disconnected from myself and from my body too, because I was so identified with this like I'm a triathlete and I work out and this is how I blow off steam and this is how I get my creativity and look at me doing this thing and look at me doing that thing. I'm such a badass. And so to not have that and to like it wasn't even an option. Like I couldn't force myself to go for a run if I wanted to. I literally had nothing. So that really started to I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back now, like that was like this beginning of like needing to move into this kind of more slower pace of life that I've been living and to like shift my identity as who I saw myself as and like what I what I thought was true for me.
Mm, mm. Yeah, lots of like identity stuff coming
Mm-hmm.
up. Yeah. Wow. I'm kind of interested to hear because obviously I know your story, but um, what I'm interested in is do you feel like, the way that you were working yourself and like pushing yourself, is that tied to any form of like addictive behaviors and patterns that you had previously experienced, um, that maybe this ties in?
100%. So yeah, I struggled with addiction from the time that I was 13 until I was 23. So I got sober in January of 2012.
Mm.
So by this point, I'd been sober for like 5 years already. But when I got sober, I didn't deal with any of my stuff. I essentially replaced my addiction for alcohol with an addiction for fitness and movement. And that one's a lot more culturally accepted. People were praising me. They're like, wow, you look amazing, you're doing all these wonderful things. And so it was really easy for me to like absorb that and identify with that and be like, oh, okay, so this is what I need to keep doing then.
Yeah.
Like I kind of joke, but slash not joke, like I was literally like running away from all of my problems. And on top of that, like it also was channeled into a working front too, like just that busyness. Like it's not different. You can either just like black out and drink and not deal with what's going on, or you can work yourself so hard that you don't have any extra brain capacity to think about or deal with what was going on. And like I had a brief kind of like opening to this. I think it was maybe in like 2015 or something. I'd burned myself out with work. There's a pattern here if you have not noticed. And my coach at the time was like, I want you to take a week off of work. And I was like, okay, this is going to be so good. And I was so anxious for that week. And I had a glimmer of thought of like, oh, these are things that I didn't deal with almost 4 years ago coming up. And then I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go back to work so I don't have to deal with that shit.
Oh, that Capricorn. Oh, it's just
Yeah.
so like, I'm just going to keep working.
Yeah. There's probably something at the top of the mountain that will feel really good and make it so that I never have to feel any of these things. So I'm just going to keep walking up that mountain.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's so like, if Saturn is our biggest teacher, right? Like, which it's supposed to be, Saturn is our big teacher, and he is the daddy Saturn and wants to like, you know, come in and say, you have to deal with this in order to get what you actually want. Because Saturn also is karmic. So it'll bring around what you want if you do the work. But it sounds like part of what your work wasn't actually, I mean, obviously you were working, but like your work was that under stuff that was being hidden by society work, maybe, which is so fascinating to me. So I'm really glad that we like tied in those patterns. Because Saturn's also like, no, whatever you're gonna repress, it's gonna come up. You got to deal with it.
Oh, totally.
Oh, so wild. So okay, so I actually was like burnout, blackout, or burnout. That's something that I've
Same
thought of.
thing.
Yeah,
Same thing.
which one here? All right. So you're kind of, I guess, going through this, and adjusting or finding a new way to relate to your work. But through that, like, what did you do? Like, how did you go about that?
Well, I'm still stubborn.
Mhm.
So it was like a lot of like back and forth. Like I remember taking, because like I said, my triathlon was at end of July. So I remember taking August and I was like hiking and just like doing different things that were like just like being outside more and like not pushing myself. And like I started getting more into my spiritual practices again at that point. And I was like, oh, like these things feel really good. And then like the fall rolled around and I think I probably went back into working the same kind of ways. Oh yeah, I did. I like moved my training into a new space. I hired a new girl. We like started doing different things. Or no, maybe I didn't hire her. Anyway, there was still a lot of work happening.
Yeah. Lots of business stuff. Like your
Totally.
focus was very business oriented at this
Very
time.
much so. Yeah. I was less on like the triathlon front. Like I kind of knew that I needed to not do that to my body again. I still did quite a few like cycling things, like distance events and stuff after that, but the running was what was like really hard on my body. So like the workouts had kind of toned down a little bit, but my focus was still so much on work. And it's my default, right? Like when things get hard or things get uncomfortable, it's really easy for me to be like, well, I'm just gonna create something for myself to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a conscious process.
Yeah.
Looking back, I can see what I was doing, but in the moment, it's like, no, this is very important and I need to do this right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there was a lot of that back and forth. And it wasn't really until 2018 I joined a mastermind, and my coach was like very, very much, she opened my eyes to this idea that there was more to me beyond what I did in the world.
Mm.
And again, it was a really hard thing for me to grasp. Like I kept fighting it. I would like see it and I would get moments of being like, oh, right. Like it's okay for me to slow down. It's safe for me to actually like take this time off. And then I would go back and be like, wait, no, I have to work all the time again.
Mm.
And I would go back and forth between it. And we had a mastermind retreat, and we did breath work in it. And I had not done breath work before. It was my first time. I'd heard about it, but I like didn't know anything about it. And so we're like lying on the floor and we're all breathing really heavily. And I was like, what is this? This is so weird. And I started feeling like I had to cry. And I was like, why do I have to cry? Like, I don't have to cry. I'm in a room full of women who I just met in person for the first time. I'm not going to cry. And I couldn't hold it in. Like, it was the biggest emotional release I'd ever experienced. It felt like everything that I had ever experienced and stuffed down with alcohol or work or busyness or whatever it may be, like it all came up asking to be felt, and then it was gone.
Wow.
And so I don't know how long that breathwork session was. It's not as long as the ones I do. I think we were maybe only breathing like 30 minutes, but it was the most pivotal moment of my life because it made me realize like, oh, there's a lot that needs to be healed. There's a lot that just needs to be felt first before I even know what needs healing. But being in that space where I was essentially forced to begin to deal with the shit that I had not dealt with for, by that point, like, I don't know, 15 years, plus all of the stuff when you're a kid, right? You're always told, don't cry, it's fine, don't be so sensitive. That really was the beginning of like my healing journey, and starting to realize that like actually believing that there was more to me than my output in the world and who people thought I was and how I needed to show up, and just all of these pressures that I placed on myself.
Yeah. Wow. I think it's so interesting that you're saying like that was the beginning of your healing journey and you realized there was more ways to heal. Um, because you just said like when it came time to do your triathlons and your body was literally being like, I need to heal. Like your body was showing you areas that, that needed healing, that needed a different way that you were used to, I guess, performing, I guess, living, I guess, operating. And so I just find that so fascinating. There's such a correlation to that. The other thing that I think is really cool. So when you did that first breath work, did you say 2018?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is also super interesting. So because Saturn went into Capricorn in 2017, it would start to make its way through everyone's chart differently. But for Ariana, it would start to go through um, the 12th house. So essentially, what the 12th house is about is all about healing and letting go and releasing the subconscious and coming from a place of more spirituality. And it acts as a big surrender. Like you need to surrender here and trust universe, God, source, whatever you believe. But that's what the 12th house is, because it literally ends everything. It ends out a cycle. So the parallel to that is so interesting because you obviously have this energy of like being able to build is a big part of you, but the end of the cycle was like you've got to build this in a different way, and you in a different way. So astrology, I just love it so much.
Right. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I guess knowing that then you've started this new journey, basically like in 2018. Actually, didn't you go to Bali? When did you go to Bali?
We went to Bali beginning of 2019.
Okay.
But that also came too as a result of like doing things differently. Like, in 2017, I couldn't take 2 weeks off work to go to Bali. Like, are you kidding me?
Mm.
But it was after that breathwork session where I started to just look for different opportunities. So I think that it was after that when I hired someone to take on clients for me. So I wasn't working 25 hours a week. I started offering small group training. So I was like finding different ways to like do the things that I love to do, but like be more intentional and like be a little bit more strategic about it. So I'm not just like spraying my energy everywhere.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, it was doing that that allowed me to go and take 2 weeks off of work and still have like my business be running and everything while we were in Bali. And I definitely like deepened into my spirituality during that time. Even the year before, like my spirituality was like, I'm going to pull a card and I'm going to journal about it, or I'm going to journal about my thoughts, or I'm going to do affirmations. And
Mm.
like all of those things are great, but it's like it's very heady, right? Like, you can do them without having to feel anything. And that's what I really needed, was like being able to feel. So breath work was huge for that. Um, and just like being slower and not being as busy, because then it leaves space for shit to come up for you to feel.
Oh my, that is the truth. And we run from it. I know, I definitely know I did. I do. um yeah, it's just so this whole 12th house thing. I've actually talked to a few people who have had their Saturn returns move through the 12th house. Um and I find it so fascinating knowing what it is that they do. So now I guess like I'm just curious. I want to know more on like your own healing journey and then how that also has like affected, I guess, your business. You kind of said a little bit of it, but I guess leading into now or into the next phase of your life.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So I continued basically just for the next like year and a bit. It was just a continued like slowing down more and more. Like how can I continue to like show up and do things that I love to do in the world by doing as little as possible? It's kind of like been my approach, whether it's with movement or with business. Like minimum effective dose. I remember reading that somewhere, and that's like the approach that I apply to when I'm making improvements in my well-being, when I'm trying to grow my business. Like, what is the least amount of work that I can do here while still producing results? And so I think I took that kind of like Capricorn energy with it to like see like, okay, so this is a system that I can bring in here. Like, here's how I can create processes to make things more easy. Here's how I can like bring people in and like help build them up so that like I don't have to do as much. Um, and through that, it helped me learn to not attach my self-worth to how much I was doing, how much money I was making, what my body looked like all of these bullshit things that society says are important and like are measures of our success.
Mhm.
It was a continual unraveling of myself and my worth from that. And at the end of around the end of 2020, I guess it was actually like towards the end of summer last year. So around this time, I started to realize or come to accept the realization I'd had a few months before that a lot of the work that I was doing just wasn't lighting me up anymore.
Mm.
So running my personal training business was not feeling easeful. I'd been doing coaching work, I'd been working with entrepreneurs, I'd been doing breath work and all these other things for like about a year or so before that. Um, and I didn't have the space to really expand into that in the way that I wanted, because I was still holding on to this personal training piece and that identity essentially that I had of like being fitness girl and being a personal trainer. And it was such a big part of my sobriety that I hadn't wanted to let that go.
Mhm.
But I realized it was time. I realized it was time to let go of the community that I was running before, that Court had mentioned, EHF, because it was still very like body based. It was very kind of like surfacey, and I wanted to go deeper with people. So I let those things go to create space for bringing in newness into my business. And what it ended up bringing was pregnancy. So I didn't have this big expansion in my business like I thought I would. I had a big expansion in my belly. Um, which again was great because even there, like I was asked to slow down even more. Like I thought I had been slowing down, but I was tired. I had morning sickness, first trimester kind of sucks. And then I was also coming to terms with the fact that I was going to have a child, which I never thought I would and didn't want ever, except for like those last couple months right before. So there was this like deeper need to surrender and slow down and take space. And that felt hard, but I was so grateful that I had done the work that I had done in that year and a bit before, because it was like already getting sort of used to the slowness.
Mm.
Now that I have a baby, she was born just over a month ago.
Mhm.
I'm being asked to slow down at an even deeper level. And it's still hard. It's like a deeper level of that learning, which I'm sure is going to continue more and more. But I can see how all of the stuff that I went through, even though it wasn't like I've healed or I've got it, it was like those stepping stones to bring a little bit more ease to that bigger lesson that I was about to learn. And then that would, having worked through that, brought a little bit more ease to that bigger lesson that was about to come.
So hindsight's 2020.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like, and not to mention, so like obviously you're also going through all of this during a pandemic. Like this is something that I think, the Saturn return people who had Capricorn and also Aquarius gap this like ex- extraordinary time, right? Where everything feels uncertain and slowness needed to come in. So I'm sure even on some level, learning what you did before and developing what you did helped within that as well, like pandemic, etc. But you also like finished your Saturn return. Basically, Saturn moved into Aquarius at the end of 2020. And you found out you were pregnant when?
November 13th.
So literally right at the end of your Saturn return.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Surprise.
is just like so cool and wild and amazing, and also just shows that one of the messages I really want people to understand is, as tumultuous as our Saturn returns can be, because it's so many lessons, which I'm going to ask you yours next, but there's also like blessings that come from this. And those blessings can be babies, those blessings can be marriages, those blessings can be new houses, partners, all the things. But there's also part of that that comes with shifting our identity, which is hard. Those can still be hard. They can be blessings and they can still be hard things. So, anyway, what do you feel like your biggest lessons were during those few years?
Mm, the big thing, and it's one that I still like, I don't journal affirmations anymore or anything, but like I regularly repeat things in my mind, is that it's safe to slow down.
Mm.
And like I almost even want to say that it's like it's not safe to slow down, like it is required for me to slow down, because I operate at such a better level physically. Like my body feels so much better. I have little aches and pains, but nowhere near to the place that I did before. Um, my body healed itself. Like my cycle came back after 7 years of just all over the place, not from supplements, not from doing different things, literally just from slowing down. That's all it was. Working with my nervous system. Um, and even like when I got pregnant last year, and like I was like, I can't work right now. B, I don't want to work. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to build a business. I don't want to like be on. I want to focus on my body and just like take this space for myself and my baby. It was one of the most like financially abundant times of my business, which is wild. It's absolutely wild. And like when we look at the amount of output that I was doing with that, like it should not have happened. But just different things came up, different opportunities. And so it
Wow.
again is another piece of evidence that like when I actually trust and take that space, as scary as it is, because we're so conditioned to correlate like results with the amount of effort that I put in any aspect of life, to give myself the permission to operate outside of that and to trust that I am supported and that support can come in any number of different ways. Um, that I think has been the biggest lesson. And
Mm,
it's one that I know I haven't fully integrated. I know I'm going to need to continue deepening into that because I see it now in this different stage of my life where there's still uncertainty, like even more than before. Um, but it's like I have all of that evidence of the past, and if I can continue to remind myself of that and to fall back into that, I can really embody that aspect of slowness and you know live that lesson of like not only is it safe but it's like required. Like this is just how I have to be. Like
mm.
there's no space for me to go back to the way that I was. And I don't want to go back to that way either.
Yeah, it is required for me to give myself space. Like, yeah, you literally, I, how you just said, like, I don't want to go back to that way either. Ending, you ended a cycle. You are now embodying a new cycle, and as a result to all that work that you did during your Saturn return. Um, which is so incredible, really, to see the way that that kind of plays out. So, I guess like actually, I kind of am curious. What do you think has there been any like karma that's come around since Saturn has been out of your sign that you feel like, I don't know if it's a tangible result or if it's like something that you feel that's like, oh, I can actually feel like this is like due to, what I did or what I let go of at that time.
Mm, well, I definitely think the baby, like purely from a physical standpoint, like my body could not produce a baby, like
Yeah.
because if I couldn't produce a period, like I couldn't produce a baby, right?
So cool.
So there's that just on a very physical level, but on an energetic level too, right? Like I think back to if I got pregnant in 2018, 2017, 2016, if it happened in any of those years, I would not be able to bring a child into this earth in a conscious way.
Mm,
Whereas now I feel like, I've done a lot of healing work from my lineage. I've really worked to reconnect with my indigenous roots and adopt a sense of pride for where I come from, and to now be able to pass that on to her, to be able to raise her in a way where I can like mostly like stay grounded and regulated. Like there's definitely been some challenging moments where I've been like, Jordan, you need to take the baby right now.
yeah.
But like, it's not nearly at the same level, like the frustration that I would have had years ago. And I just think to be like, if nothing else, to be able to raise a child in a healthy, well regulated environment. And, a friend asked me yesterday, like, what are you most excited to teach her? And I was like, I can't wait to teach her to like accept her emotions and to be able to feel big feelings and not be afraid of them, and to learn how to regulate herself, not like regulate in the sense of like let's be robots, but just like let's learn how to work with our systems. And I wouldn't have been able to do any of that without all of those lessons that I had learned in that work that I did. So that's, I think, definitely the biggest one. There's other things with like work and stuff like that, but it doesn't seem nearly as potent as this piece around raising my little girl.
Mm. Oh, I love that so much. And I love her. She's so cute.
I'm surprised she hasn't made an appearance.
I
Jordan's
know.
doing a great job out there. I can hear the classical music going pretty loud.
Just really going for the dance, rocking out. Yeah. I love it so much. I think it's just such a great, like, oh, it's so beautiful to watch like this, you again, I know you. I didn't know you like super well when you were starting your business or anything, but just even like the energy shift that you just described of like I went from this like work hard, like this energy of like gotta push, gotta go, and then softening into this space of you've created a new structure to work from in your life that allows spaciousness, that allows that more I guess a softer energy. And it's just so beautiful to see that transition. um So what do you think that's gonna lead to? Like coming out of this? Like where you're at now? Like what do you think?
Oh, I like I'm inclined to say I have no idea, and I don't feel like that's totally true. I definitely feel like a reworking of how I work. I was still doing like a lot of one-on-one coaching and things like that, and I can't do that moving forward. Like I'm not going to be able to take that space away from my girl. So what that maybe looks like then is like bringing people together more in different ways, more group offerings, more experiential things. What we're really manifesting right now is a big, beautiful piece of land where we can build essentially a commune. Like that's what I want to do is I want to start a commune, and I want to have people living in community and working together. What I would love is like having people with um, different things to offer and different ways to serve, and we can create these beautiful offerings on our land. Come and have a fire and like get a healing session, a group breathwork session, eat a delicious meal cooked by everything from our gardens and things like that. So I'm seeing like still creating a big impact in the world and a really deepening of my work, but like doing so in a much different way than I've done up to this point. And I see it being a lot more community driven.
Community, 11th house. You had to learn, going through that like portal, birthing this new world. And it sounds more sustainable, like that. I know we've talked about this word before, but moving into that like longevity, even of like keeping things so it can go longer um and community just coming together. It sounds so beautiful. I cannot wait. I'm manifesting it with you.
Yeah, because you're gonna come live on my land.
I'm like, I need my little tiny home is coming. Like,
So good.
yeah. Okay, so what would you say to someone who's going through their Saturn return right now? If you had like any advice to give them, or I don't know, just like pat on the back.
Well, definitely pat on the back, big hug, because whew. Um, but I'm almost like I'm seeing like I don't know what they are like I feel like Inspector Gadget would have had these like goggles where you can like see through things, right? And so like seeing like approaching your life of like looking through this lens of like when things are coming up, like, oh, is there a lesson in this for me? And not necessarily from the standpoint of like, oh, I need to like do more work on this, or like here's another thing that I need to heal, or here's another thing that's wrong with me, but just like an air of curiosity. If you're going through a tumultuous time, can we both acknowledge the pain and the discomfort or whatever it may be, and also look at it from this piece of, is there something deeper going on here? Is this here to teach me something? Am I going to grow from this? So it's not to bypass what is happening, but to just, like you said, hindsight's 2020, right? So could we have a little bit of that foresight while we're going through it, just to be like, okay, this sucks. And there's something bigger here for me. I know that this is moving me towards something.
Mm,
Just like brings a little bit more ease. When we resist it, that added resistance, like that just creates more chaos than would already be there. So if we could just accept it and like know that it's moving us towards something, it at least takes away that self-imposed chaos. And then it's just like the universal imposed chaos and our
yeah.
karmic chaos.
Oh, the chaos. No, I love that though. I feel like, curiosity of being like it's hard to do when you're in it. Like I feel like, but it is really tough to do when you're in it sometimes, but um I think it is really powerful to be like, well, what is this actually teaching me? And I think all of us, like in the time and world that we're in, there's so much that we have to learn from the external like circumstances. And I don't know, it's a question that I ask myself a lot during my Saturn return. I'm like, okay, what is this actually teaching me here? Because like, and sometimes I'm like, I have no idea. Can you go away? But it is such a powerful question. So
Totally.
I love that.
And I think too, like even just knowing that there's something that is like trying to like teach itself to you, or there's something that's trying to come through. It's like we don't even need to know in that moment, right? It's like just having that faith that there is something bigger at play.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we're not meant to know it in that moment. And like I will remember this because like you shared that with a reflection with me when I was talking about just like speaking up right now and things like that, is you're like, you know, maybe it's not your time. So it's like I can see something that I want to be doing differently, and maybe it's not the time right now. So again, we can like see that there are lessons in medicine unfolding, but maybe we're not meant to know the depth of that medicine in that moment. We're meant to actually just sit in it and like feel it.
Oh, that's a good one. So true. Here's a funny story. I actually remember this was like I think I was 28. Yeah, I think I was 28. Anyway, I remember we went to a moon circle. It was Julia's moon circle. And I like met you there. I hadn't seen you in a long time, but I was going through like this kind of breakup situation that happened really like abruptly. And I think I was also messaging you or something during that time frame anyway. I remember just being like, I am like not okay. I was feeling very like a lot of emotions. And you were like, well, like, can you just sit with it? And like, what a concept, right? It's scary to create the space to sit with it and just feel it. But now what I've learned from that is like, it's actually passes so much more. Like, I am have all the emotions. I share them on everything because I think it's important. But also, they pass. They go. Like you feel them and they go when they're ready. Like it's not a wild concept, but it is because it's something that we've just been conditioned to hide from. And so I think it's going to be really amazing for you to be able to teach Luna that. Oh,
That's okay. You can say her name. We're not like hiding. Clearly, I'm not hiding her from the world.
I'm still I'm still like, I can't say her name.
Oh. No, it's okay now. People know her name.
Okay. Fun fact. Anyway, I'll tell you guys about that later. But yeah, I just think that that's such great medicine, and just for people to remember that, you know, like it might be tumultuous right now and maybe that's okay. So huge. Okay, let me ask you like a funny question here. What do you think about the signs? For example, is there a sign that you feel like you can like connect with super easily? And why? And are there any that you're like, I don't know about that one?
I feel like I can connect with like most signs quite well.
Mhm.
Like my partner's a Pisces, and I love a Pisces. I love you as an Aquarius. Like there's just, I don't know, I feel like good things from all of the signs.
Mhm.
The ones that I'm like kind of apprehensive towards are Cancer and
Mm.
Scorpio. And
Dive into that, please.
so Luna, my daughter, is a Cancer sun, Scorpio moon, and Cancer rising. And like I've just known Cancers and Scorpios, and I've known them to be a little more on the intense side
Mhm.
and like very in their emotions.
Mhm.
And you know, I am a very feely person. And I'm also still sometimes like, okay, like feel it. And then like, let's go, like, let's get over it.
Mhm.
And not everyone's like that. And that's okay. And it's beautiful that not everyone's like that. But I can already see that in her. And like, granted, she's an infant, right? So like, it's
Yeah.
going to change. But there's a lot of intensity with Luna. So I feel like there's going to be a lot for me to learn around like patience in that teaching of emotions. Like we're going to validate them and we're going to sit in them for as long as we need to, even if that's longer than mommy would like us to sit in them for.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like you just said, you like trained for this essentially, right? Like that nervous system and wanting to teach her how to kind of, you know, help herself through emotions. It's something that I will preach this every day, all the time. That is a gap in the systems, in the school boards, and you know, they're getting better, but um it's so important, like emotion regulation. And
Oh,
there she
she's coming
is.
to make an
Hello.
appearance.
Hello. I just heard it.
Oh, there's a dog. There's a dog. There's a baby. Would you
I,
like me to take her?
Yeah, that's okay.
I love
Just a
it.
moment.
Yes. Hi, Lucy.
Her baby.
This is Lucy. We love Lucy. Hello, Lucy. How are you doing? Good. Okay, great. Hi,
Lucy's good. Lucy's good. There's a little baby.
Hi, Luna.
Hungry.
Oh, we love this so much. This is like actually amazing that this is the real life.
Putting a blanket over her face. Normally I just whip the boob out, but because we're going on YouTube here, we need to
But you know what? This
keep
is
it
like
easy.
this is the thing that is real life. This is what, I feel like we need to show people and, normalize. And also, this is what we're doing. This is life.
Hashtag working mom life.
Yeah, exactly. I will also say, I just want to bring in a little bit. I know I'm going a little bit over here, so we will wrap this up. But what I will say is that what's interesting is you have your Chiron in Cancer, and it actually opposes your Saturn. So a lot of lessons there on learning that Cancerian energy connected to wounds of like, emotions, intuition, learning to, go at that slower pace, feel your feelings. And now you have a baby who is going to, who shows up in that area of your chart. So now it's kind of this like interesting dynamic of being able to work with your Chiron and heal, not through her, but almost like as she begins her journey, you will heal as well, even more on a deeper layer.
I forgot that my Chiron was in Cancer. I remember learning that during when we did our 5D Astro Circle that month. I was like, oh, that's where my Chiron is.
Yeah.
And then totally forgot. So
Yeah.
way to go, Luna. You're going to teach me all the things.
Yeah, I'm going to do a video on Chiron and Cancer because I think it's really important right now. Just a heads up, if anyone has Chiron and Cancer, I believe it has a lot to do with the divine feminine, matriarchy movements. I don't love that terminology, but you know what I mean. The witches of the past, those types of things. So I'll do a YouTube video on that. But
just a little side note on that. Something that I love is like, rather than going to like matriarchy versus patriarchy kind of thing, a term that I love is like the rematriation. So we're like bringing it in, but we're not like going into like a matrilineal led society, because that can also cause problems, right? But we're just like rematriating, just like we're rebalancing kind of thing.
Oh, I love that. Rematriating. That is such a good term. Rematriating. Yeah. I love that. And mating.
Ooh,
look at that. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. It's super exciting. Obviously, right now you're in mom mode and, really taking this time to kind of be with your family, which is so amazing. But do you want to share anything with people that, might be something in the next couple months that you have ideas around, or what it is that you offer that so people will be able to find you?
Yeah, definitely. I still have my community, the 5D Business Collective, which Court does our socials for.
Yeah.
And I've been very grateful to her and Alex, who have also been helping just like keep it afloat while I've been taking some time. But it's a great community for spiritual entrepreneurs, conscious business owners, healers, seekers, folks who just want to share their medicine. So that would be a really great place to check out. We do gatherings online each month. It's at a super accessible rate because I just want to make it something that everyone can join. And beyond that, I would say maybe keep an eye out for some breath work in the coming months. I'd love to get back to doing some group breath work offerings throughout the fall and the winter. Court tells me it's important, so I'm just gonna go with that. So yeah, if you come find me on social media, just come say hi. I'd love to chat anyway. But yeah, either check out 5D Business Collective or keep an eye out for some breath work.
Yay, so exciting. And I also will keep everyone posted on Bravely Beautiful. I think I have all the workshops that at least I do for the 5D for Astro Circles on my account. So I'll link it all below so you can find it. Yeah. But amazing. Yay. We're so excited. This is so much fun. Thank you again for coming and doing this and sharing a bit of your Saturn return story. Is there any last things you'd want to say before we sign off?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this too, because I think, I didn't know that Saturn return was a thing when I was going through it. So, I think of like our friend Alex, who is like listening to these before she enters her Saturn return, or even folks who are in the midst of it. Like, I just feel like being able to hear from other people who have gone through it would be really validating. So thank you for giving us the space both to like, share and integrate our own lessons at a deeper level, but to create that space for others to learn and like feel seen and acknowledged.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And also Luna, one day you're going to have these too, because you're in a Saturn and Aquarius, girl. Okay.
Good luck.
Yeah. Here to change the world. Anyway, all right. Well, we'll end it off here. And if you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, do all of the things that we say to do on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast platforms and you're on Apple, definitely give a rating and review. It just helps with the reach. And come say hey on Instagram at Saturn Return Diaries. But other than that, I will see you guys in our next episode.